Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are painting the Lord Exultant from the new Emperor's Children army box. We're going to be using mostly the Army Painter Fanatic paint today, but we may also use some GW stuff depending on how it goes. I don't really have a plan for this guy, other than I know I'm going to do him roughly purpley pink and that his cape is going to be green. That's basically as far as I've thought through the process. So, we're going to start off with Diabolic Plum. This is the darkest color in the magenta hexad, I guess you call it. These the Army Painter Fanatic paints are arranged in groups of 6, and this is the darkest of this one. So, I'm just going to start base coating his armor in this color, making sure to get every bit. I don't like to have to go back to a color if I don't have to, so I'm just going to make sure to get every little thing. And I'm going to be more generous, I guess the word would be. I'm going to paint more than maybe will end up purple, just in case I decide that something needs to be purple. Then it's already base coated and I don't have to worry about coming back to it. But yeah, I will go through this color here, and then we will come back and do the next step. Alright, we are back, and that first base coat is mostly dry. So we're going to move on to our second color here, which is going to be Warlock Magenta. And as you can see on the hexad system here, we're skipping a step. We're jumping 2 steps up for this next highlight, and we're going to do that again for the final color on this armor. We're going to jump 2 steps again. So if you think of them like numbers, we're using paints 1, 3, and 5. And with this paint, number 3 here, we're just going to go over the same areas again. But if we happen to leave some of this base coat in the recesses, that's not a big deal. Basically, it's the base coat is just acting as the sort of underlayer of this color that we're putting on, and then the next color will be our highlight. So we don't need absolute perfect coverage with this second color here. But if we tried to put this color straight onto our primer, it would not work so well. We'd have to do either a bunch of different coats, or it just wouldn't give us the vibrancy that we want. So I'm just going over basically everywhere that I put the initial purple. So once I'm done with this, I will come back and we'll do the highlight. Alright, so that second coat is mostly dry now, and we're going to move on to our highlight now. For that, we're going to use Enchanted Pink, and as you can see again, we've gone up 2 steps, so this is step 5 in the hexad, but only step 3 for us. And I'm going to use a different brush here. I'm going to use sort of this like flat kind of square brush, and we're going to stipple this highlight on. So I'm going to get some paint on the end of my brush, and I'm not going to wipe as much off as if I was dry brushing, but I don't want it completely soaked in paint. So you can see there, I have some paint on the brush, but it's not completely saturated. And then we're just going to come in and stipple our armor panels. And I'm doing this just because, you know, the Emperor's Children are a chaos faction, and who knows what energy and crazy stuff they have coursing through their armor. So this will just make it look a little different, and I think it'll look cool in the end. And, you know, if you're not making painting choices by what's based or what's going to look cool, then what are you even doing? So I'm just going to do this all over the armor, same places that we've done the first 2 colors. And then once this is all dry, we will come back and we'll start on maybe the leather. Alright, so our stippling is all done here, and you can see it there on the armor. Now we're going to base coat the leather. And for that, we're going to use the warm skin tone base of carnelian skin. We're probably not going to highlight this too much. We might use just the second level in the hex head. This is not a speed paint exactly, but we are trying to do this quickly. This is if you want a whole army of Emperor's Children, especially of the new miniatures, pretty fast. We don't want to spend a ton of time on each miniature. But for now, we're going to start with this carnelian skin. So I'll just get a little bit out on my palette here. And there's a decent amount of leather on this guy. So, of course, you have the tabard right here. And then on this guy's right leg, this whole thing here is leather. So I'll get that. And then this up here is actually part of his cloak, which is going to be a different color, so we don't want to do that. His holster back here, though, is leather. So we'll get that. And then around here on the front again, the spear handle is also leather. At least I'm going to paint it leather. You could probably paint it metallic or really any color you want, but I'm going to paint it as leather. Then I'm just going to give the miniature a once over, making sure that there's no other spots that I want to paint this color. And I think we're good. So I will finish applying this base coat, and then we'll come back and do the next step. All right, our leather base coat is all done now. And now we're going to base coat the green fabric here. For that, I'm going to use the bottom layer of the deep greens hex head called Angel Green. And I'm just going to go in and carefully, so as not to get paint on any of the other areas, base coat in the fabric. And I think I might do the plume in this color as well, although I'm not 100% sure. But for sure, this little sash thing is attached to his cloak, and it kind of runs up through this and then down the back, under this chain, and then, of course, his whole cloak here. I thought briefly about doing different colors for the inside and outside of the cape. And for a model that I don't really paint display models at all, but something that I was trying to just spend a little more time on, so sort of at the nicer end of tabletop ready, I might do that. But for this project, just trying to get an army out there, I'm just going to do both sides of the cloak in green. I will finish up this base coat. I may need to do a second layer of this. Might not cover the primer exactly as much as I want to. So if I need to, I will. And then once that's all done, I'll come back and we'll do the next step. All right, we are back, and now we're going to base coat the plume and then these little, I don't know, decorative things that are on him. And for that, we're going to use the very bottom color of the warm grays and whites hex head. So I'll get a little bit of this out on my palette. I decided, because I want to try to incorporate the colors from the 30K Emperor's Children color scheme, that I'd probably want to add some white because there's some white on them. And so I'm going to start with this more gray color, and then we'll work our way up to white. I probably won't even go all the way to pure white, but next to the dark brown, the pink, and the green, it'll read at least close to white, and so that'll be just fine. So I'm just going to get these things here. There's a couple more along the bottom of the cape there. Just checking here, making sure there aren't any more. I don't believe there are, so then it'll just be the plume here. And of course, if I missed any, I'll go back and grab those as well. Just being careful not to get any of this on this pink armor that is essentially done. But yeah, I will finish getting this base coat on all these bits. Let that dry. and then we'll come back and do the next step. All right, we are back, and now we're going to base coat all the black. For that, we're just using simple matte black. It is all the way at the bottom of the black and grays hexad, although I don't actually own the rest of this hexad. I just own the black, but that's okay. This is going to be on, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I think about it as all the working bits of the armor. So like the joints here, we'll get those in black. Then like the vents on the bottom here, those will be black. Basically all the like the parts that are doing something. It's kind of hard to explain how exactly I think about it, but like, you know, they're not the actual armor plates, they're not the trim of the armor, they're all the other stuff. That'll also include these pipes right here. Some of this will be gold after a while, but for now I'm just going to base coat them in black. And then I'll just go around getting all of these joints here. There's many all over the miniature. And I'll get some down here. I think these are technically, you know, the Emperor's Children have their like noise marine motifs and stuff, and I think that's what this is. This is supposed to be like a face like screaming, but I'm gonna do it in black regardless. Then I'm just gonna go around the miniature finding the rest of those and base coating them in, and then once that's dry, we'll come back and do the next step. All right, the black is all done now and nice and dry. Now we're gonna move on to base coating the gold. We're gonna start with Greedy Gold. These metallic paints, as you can see, aren't organized into hexads. They're just different shades. But we're going to start with this, and then we're going to highlight it up with a different one later. And this is just going to be basically all the trim on this miniature. So this is probably going to be the longest base coating step. Just have to go around being very careful to not hit any of this armor. And just grab all the little details. So the symbol here on his belt buckle, or whatever you want to call this thing here. Then the trim on his armor under the leather here, getting right up to the black. All this trim here. Get all that. Then you have this bit down here. If you look closely, there is trim right here, and then the rest of it is a different material or whatever. So I'm going to paint just the trim in this color, and the main body of this decorative shin guard is going to stay purple. And then, of course, the classic Space Marine shoulder trim, although this is a bit fancier because of the decorative elements of the Emperor's Children. We'll get that. And most of it's hidden here, but there is some of it right here. This is shoulder pads sticking down. It's not the cloak. And then this symbol, we'll get that. The crossguard and decorative bit of the sword here, all the way down here. And then trim on the backpack here, this symbol, and all that. I'll base coat that with a larger brush, but all that will be gold. And then I think I'm going to do this entire thing here, all the way out here and down there. All that'll be gold. And then these will stay purple or pink. And then same thing over here. So I will just go through the miniature here, blocking in all the gold. Like I said, this will be the longest base coat step, but it'll be worth it when we're done. So I'm going to go through and do that. When it's all dry, we'll come back and do the next step. All right, we are back, and now we're going to base coat the whip. And for that, we're going to use the second color from the bottom of the deep skin tones, Onyx Skin. And not starting all the way at the bottom for any particular reason. I just liked the color. So that's what I'm going with. And I'm just going to cover the whip here. This whip might be supposed to be metallic. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't actually look at the box art. But I'm going to do it in just like, leather or probably some fancy 41st Millennium material that is probably nothing like leather. But regardless, whips are usually made of leather. So maybe they have like genetically modified kangaroos in the 41st Millennium that they make their whips out of. Regardless, I'm going to make sure this base coat is completely good. And then we'll come back and base coat the silver. And then I believe we will have all our base coats done. All right, we are back and we're going to do the silver now. I'm going to do this in cobalt metal. And again, these aren't arranged in hexads. They're just individual shades. So I'm just choosing one that I like. And in this case, it's cobalt metal. And I'm just going to base coat in all the metal here. So I said the word metal a lot in that sentence. I'm going to start with the sword blade here and a larger brush. And just be careful down near the gold. Probably need a couple coats on that, just because this silver doesn't seem to want to coat over this base coat in one go. A lot of the times I will just, especially when I'm army painting or battle ready painting, I will just do one coat. But if it's obvious that it's not really coating as well as it should be, then I will do a second coat. I'm going to switch to a thinner brush now and continue with the metallic. And I'm going to do the chains here. Being careful not to hit the leather that's underneath or in between the links. I'm also going to do the business end of the whip in this silver, as well as all of the points, the barbs on the whip. There are some here and some up here. And then it's just kind of going around picking out what's left. So there's this right here. He has what appears to be a nipple ring on the outside of his armor, so that's interesting. And there's some spikes right here. I'll do those in silver. All these studs on the leather here, I'll do them in silver. And then we're just kind of hunting. There's rivets in a couple places on the gold, so we'll do those. There's some rivets up here. I'll get those. And then, like I said, it's just about hunting, finding where there are rivets or things. There's some back here. There's some on the gun holster here. There's some more chains over here. So it's mostly rivets and chains, and then the occasional nipple ring. But otherwise, that should be about all of the silver. So I will go through and make sure to get all of that. Oh, I know one thing I forgot. The spike on the spear down here. I'll go through and make sure I get all that, and then do that second coat on the sword end of the spear. And once I do that, we'll come back and move on to some highlights. All right, we are back. And I realized we still need to do the eyes. So I'm going to use the bottom color of the warm reds, resplendent red, for this. And I also realized that I'm actually going to end the video here, after the eyes, that is. I'll put him on a simple base and put up some pictures here at the end of him on that base. And I'm going to stop here because this is battle ready. This, in actual fact, there's his eyes done. In actual fact, this is probably beyond battle ready for a lot of people. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to post this video as the, whatever this guy's called, Lord Resplendent or Exultant. There we go. Battle ready. And then in a couple days, not next week's video, but a bonus video in the middle here, I'll post a video basically taking him to the next level, not all the way to a display miniature or even parade ready, as they call it, but just a couple simple things you can do to go from battle ready to a little bit higher standard. And, you know, that might not be for everybody. Some people may just wish to stay at battle ready, and that's totally fine. You go to battle ready and you get your 10 points, and that's great. But if you do want to go beyond it, I think there's a couple really simple things you can do to really, like, almost double how good your miniature looks. So I think I'll do that. Sort of a pivot here right at the end. But I think that will be interesting. If you disagree, feel free to let me know. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I will see you on the next one.